Recruiting's been on fire. July 4th used to be about hot dogs and fireworks and whatnot, and it still is, but man, add major five-star commitments into the mix. That is July now. Told you guys a couple of years ago, hey, June and July are about to change. They're about to become the December and January in recruiting, and they are. And here we are. I mean, Cameron Coleman, as most of you were celebrating your extended holiday weekend, Cameron Coleman, five-star wide receiver, committed to Auburn. No, he didn't. You thought he was going to commit to Auburn. Maybe you thought he was going to commit to Clemson. Jimbo pulled it off. Texas A&M, there's a faint pulse still detectable out there in College Station. 6'3", 180 pounds, number 5 wide receiver in the country, number 17 overall. As I said, both the Tigers were in this thing. Clemson and Auburn, there are like 15 of them. Clemson and Auburn were in it. Nope. He says, I'm going to College Station. I'm going to play for A&M. Cooper Pategna, and we all know him to be the most reliable source on information this side of Singapore. His pro comp is George Pickens. Big-bodied receiver, George Pickens. Well, Cameron Coleman, I told you, 6'3", 180. It's a big pickup for them, and they're not done. In fact, that gives them 8 commits at A&M since June 22nd. That puts them in the top 10 of the overall 24/7 Sports team rankings. That is no doubt going to make some uninformed people say that commitments don't matter in July. I'll just go ahead and prepare for it. Let me go ahead and give you my response ahead of time. Yes, they do matter. And if you want to bet me on these players decommitting, I'm happy to take bets. You know the drill there. See me in the comments. It's the most manly thing you could ever say in 2023. I'll see you in the comments. The comments are the new parking lot. You don't meet in the parking lot anymore. You meet in the comments. What about Justin Scott? We were talking about Ryan Day a second ago. Let's talk about Larry Scott. He got himself yet another 5-star defensive lineman to play with there. Justin Scott to Ohio State. 6'4", 310, number 4 defensive lineman in the country, number 21 overall player in the country. They beat out Georgia for him. They beat out Miami. They beat out Bama. They beat out Notre Dame. You have to do the same thing with defensive linemen that they do with quarterbacks and receivers. And that is you stack them. That's the sound of stacking if you're listening on the podcast. You stack them on top. You stack them to the point where they can't even all stay. They leave. Like Jamison Williams at wide receiver leaves. He's an All-American at Alabama. Ohio State's still fine without him. You want to be that way on the defensive line. That's where you end up winning games. Imagine if they had elite defensive line play, elite defensive front pay the last couple of years. They look really good this coming year, but imagine if they had true elite play and not just front line, but when they rotated a second and third wave in there, they look like Alabama has in the past, like Georgia does right now. Well, these are the kind of guys that you have to acquire and then keep and develop to be able to do that. Also, we're keeping an eye on Dylan Stewart. That's a 5-star edge. The crystal balls are coming in fast and furious for him, 6'5", 235. That is going to allow Ohio State, by the way, if they land him, if they don't land him, they still got a really good class, but if they do land him, you at least start having the conversation about whether that number one class is attainable. Is it reachable? Because Georgia's got a pretty tight death grip on it right now, but long way to go. Georgia will still be the betting favorite, obviously, but Ohio State's putting together a really good class. Average player rating, 93.47 right now. That's probably going to go up, believe it or not. Elijah Rushing. This just happened today. Like if you were at work today, if you were living the life of a normal human being, you probably are unaware that 5-star edge Elijah Rushing, of all names, committed. Where do you think he committed? If you don't know anything about recruiting, I could give you 20 guesses and you would whiff. Yes, the number 1 edge player in the country. I'd give you 20 guesses. You wouldn't get it. The man committed to Arizona because he's from Tucson. He's got a brother there, and Jed Fish pulled off a grand slam of a recruiting win here. And then he tweeted out Sylvester the Cat gifts. And so it was just a win all the way around on multiple fronts for Arizona football today. It's their highest ranked commit ever. Arizona's an old state. It's an old football program. They've been doing this a long time out there. They've had some decent teams, but nobody ever landed the number 1 edge player in the country. As I said, from Tucson, got a brother there, 2022 season stats, 73 tackles, had 11.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 13.5 tackles for loss. Really good player, and he's obviously going to be the focal point of that defense for years to come. And lastly, I wanted to touch on Ryan Wingo for just a second. That's a 5-star receiver out of St. Louis. We need to keep very close eyes on him. We got crystal ball activity, the kind where you flip from one team to another. This is why you got to pay attention deep into the recruiting cycle. So if you're a Georgia fan, you start to look at all these players that you think you're going to land. You start to put together the hypothetical recruiting class, and you look at what it would grade out at. It's so hard to land all of them. So Ryan Wingo had been favored to Georgia. Well, now the crystal ball fortunes are starting to turn, including Uncle Wiltfong, who is now crystal ball to Ryan Wingo, 5-star receiver from St. Louis, to Texas. Sark's got to do this. They've got to win recruiting battles against SEC programs. And it looks like, this is certainly not a slam dunk, but it looks like it's trending the right way here. Wiltfong was just on the 24/7 Sports Recruiting Show earlier today over on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel, and I heard him talking about the experience in Austin. And I mention that phrase because I keep hearing it. Every time kids go to Texas, I keep on hearing them talking about the experience out there. And that matters because that means you're a major league recruiter, and not just as a person. I'm talking about as your staff, collectively, you understand how to structure a visit weekend. That has to do a lot with the head coach, but that head coach casts a vision that dozens of other people have to execute. I mean, recruiting staffers you don't even know the names of. Graphics folks you don't even know the names of. Assistant coaches, in some cases, you do know the names of. Professors you may or may not know the names of. Parents have to be instrumental. Current commitments, current players on your roster have to be instrumental. It sounds so simple to recruit at a high level when it's all humming. But first, you got to get it humming. Sark and Texas kind of have it humming right now. And don't think that this is just some freak occurrence when they start beating the Georgias or Bamas or Clemsons or Ohio States of the world for talent. They're recruiting as well, or close to as well, as those programs. They're not going anywhere. So Ryan Wingo, let's see if they follow through. Let's see if they land him. My guess is they will.